Remember, everything you say either helps or hinders, heals or wounds, builds up or tears down. With good communication skills, you can learn to resolve your conflicts.
I think by her and I communicating, by her and I communicating regularly, it takes a lot of added pressure, a lot of added problems from our marriage.
And once we both became Christians and the Lord became the center of our marriage and the center of our lives, things began to happen. We were able to talk to each other. We were in a non-threatening manner. We still argue. We still argue about the same subjects. But it's different because we listen to each other.
So, here you are. You and your spouse have survived the battle. You've talked it out. And now you both understand each other's feelings. But where do you go from here? How do you cool down your emotions? And how can life get back to normal?
In every conflict, there is at least one person who needs to ask for forgiveness. And many times, it's both of you. That brings me to suggestion number 5. Be willing to apologize.
There were arguments, and there were times where I would get in the van and drive off up north for 2 hours and spend the night. But that, I couldn't stay no more than a day. I had to come back because I'd call her up and apologize for my actions the way I did, because I knew I couldn't live without her.
The words, forgive me and I'm sorry, I'm wrong, are hard for me to say. But there comes a time when the pain of being alienated and split apart for hours and not being able to talk in those comforting, close relationship type words becomes a greater pain than going ahead and saying it.
Even if you didn't initiate the argument, this time, you may have overreacted and allowed your anger to control you. The key is, when you have wronged your partner, always be willing to apologize. Now, don't say, if I have hurt you, or if I said that, then I'm sorry. No, just simply say, I'm sorry I hurt you, or I'm sorry that I said that, and I will avoid saying that in the future. Admit you were wrong without conditions. Finally, suggestion number 6, be willing to forgive.
I said that I forgave him and that everything was in the past, but many times in the center of an argument, I would find myself throwing that exact situation up in his face.
I think it's rare for us to argue where things don't get out of hand. I think that we always harken back to pet peeves, and somebody told me that you truly haven't forgiven your spouse if you bring something up again.
She forgives so easily. I tend to hold resentments and anger and bitterness longer, but it's just so nice and refreshing to see how she can bounce back and not remember things.
Forgiveness means that in your heart, you are wishing that person well. But it's important to remember that forgiving doesn't happen immediately. It's a process that takes time. To forgive is to put away what has happened. You can no longer use the past against your husband or wife by bringing it up or dwelling on it in your own thoughts. Instead, show by your behavior that they are truly forgiven.
I know Jan and I aren't always going to agree, but I hate the times we fight. I hate the distance it causes, the anger that I feel, and the hurt that can linger. But I also know that when I get my emotions under control and attack the problems instead of my wife, even when we don't agree, I can listen to her side and really begin to understand where she's coming from. And that brings us closer. Not the fighting, but the listening, the talking, the sharing, and the understanding. And And I've had to do my share of apologizing, and let me say it's not always easy. But when I know I'm wrong, I want Jan to know I'll do better. The forgiving, that can be just as hard. To let go of the hurt. I mean, really let go and forget. Now, we know the steps and the process, and yet it's still hard. But that brings me back to the beginning. I know Jan and I aren't always going to agree, but I hate the times we fight.
Marriage is not for the weak-hearted. It takes a lot of determination. It takes a lot of work.
Laughter will heal a conflict better than yelling will.
I think when you love someone, you are willing to give up parts of yourself